Welcome and thank you for joining us. It's our first in in a series of webinars that the GDS Index is going to be doing. So in our little webinar, we kept it nice and short. We're going to go pretty fast with you to make most of your time. We're going to give you a little overview of the index. We're going to share with you an overview of the report and then go into some of the kind of best practices or what we call tactics for change. So we're going to share that between you. I am just going to start recording this. Okay, good. And so that's the goal of what we're going to be doing today. You've got the chat box, so please please click on that if you want to ask us any questions. You can raise your hand and ask us anything like that. Okay, good. Great. Okay, so let's kind of start with it. First of all, welcome to the revolution. You know, I'm sure most of you, and I can see many of you have been involved in sustainability for quite a while. And so there's a lot of happening around the moment, isn't there? If you only need to pick up the paper and see that the kids are on the streets, London, and the Extinction Revolution is getting contagious and flying over to other places. So people are demanding to see change. And we kind of realized that a few years ago and realized that destinations were key to driving that change forward. So with the help of our Nordic colleagues, and I see some of them online here, we created a program called the Global Destination Sustainability Index. Some of you involved with that, but for those that you're not, the index is a destination level program, and we're there to help benchmark and improve the performance or the sustainability performance of destinations. And so kind of our purpose there is to inspire, engage, and enable destinations to become more sustainable places to visit, meet in, and thrive in. So that's what we're about. It's grown from our little starting idea to now to be probably well, not probably, it is the biggest program for urban destinations in the world. We're over 50 cities around the world that are working together. And so it's really becoming a movement for change. And so we decided, you know, we like this idea and this concept of a movement because that's what we think we are. But also this program is very data driven, and that's really what's given it the edge. We're collecting data, we're analyzing the data, and we're using that data and the stories we collect from all of the participants to collaboratively help every city who participates in this to get better. So kind of 4 legs to the program, just to give you an overview of this. So we kind of help benchmark cities. I'll take you through the benchmark in a second. We help assess them. Once you know where you're at, we give ideas and recommendations on how cities can get better. And then third, for those that don't have the skills or the resources, which provides consulting support to help cities develop a strategy, to help convention or tourism authorities do stakeholder engagement, create a campaign, etc. And then the last point is really around communication. We really help to get the word out about destinations, great work and best practice. And so this white paper is kind of part of that last chunk. So that's really what we're about. The benchmarking criteria, what those cities participating, is broken into 4 key areas. So it's about looking at the city, i.e. the destination as a city, of a municipality, their environmental performance, their social performance, and you see different areas are there. Then we look at the kind of supplier performance within that meetings, events, tourism space, so the hotels, airports, agencies, restaurants, venues, even academia. So we see how well that is implementing sustainability. And then we look at the destination. So typically this is the DMO or the CVB, but different cities, different countries work in different ways. So we look holistically at how the destination is being managed in terms of meetings, events, and tourism. And we look at different areas there. And you see the SDG goals along there. So we're very much aligned our work to the SDGs, and we did a big mapping when we just redid this just a few weeks ago, actually, when we did this the 2019 criteria. So that's what the cities are going to be using next year. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. So I'm not sure how many of you have seen this, but interested to know if any of you have actually read the report. Maybe you can put in the chat message if you had. I'm interested to see if the word's gone out. But we've created a report. I think it's some of them, I think the biggest research that we've done to date. It looks at those 47 cities that were involved in last year, collects the data, and then pulls out of that what we call 5 megatrends that affect an industry, 4 building blocks that we think are now fundamental for cities to implement to create a future fit sustainability strategy, and then 8 tactics for change of how cities can implement change for their destinations. So we're going to take you through that now. And again, if you've got any questions, use the chat box. So I'm not going to help you how. Actually, I'm going to ask you a question before I hand you over to Noah. So what do you think are the mega trends that will affect the events and tourism industry in the next 20 years? Right. Okay. So now you had to kind of think about that. Let's kind of hand you over now to Noah. Noah, you have the mouse.
The mouse, yes. Well, thank you very much. Oh, wait, sorry. It's lagging a little bit. Okay, so climate breakdown is probably the first huge trend that we're seeing in the world. And you probably all know it as climate change. We've decided to change that around a slightly bit because we feel like the urgency is not really present when we say climate change. It makes it sound passive, but in reality, it's something that will affect us all in the foreseeable future. This is the next generation that we're talking about that is probably going to experience 3 to 4 degrees centigrades in mean annual temperature increase. So this is definitely notable and worth considering when we're thinking about how to develop the tourism and events industry. And very closely associated with this change is ecocide. And this is also just a dramatic term to sort of encapsulate the fact that the wildlife populations have declined in around 60% between 1970 and 2014. And every 20 minutes, a species becomes extinct. And I mean, overall, this might affect the tourism industry more than the events industry, but ultimately it will affect all, everyone on Earth. And this is really something that we as the GDS Index will seek to avoid by giving advice wherever we can to make the choices of the DMOs more sustainable. And aside of the environmental side of things, we also have to consider the demographic and social changes that are going on. So one huge transformation or shift that we're seeing there is that people are moving more and more into urban centers. And roughly, 1.5 million people are added to the global urban population each week, which eventually is estimated to bring the global population in cities to 68% by 2050. This change is taking place predominantly in Africa, also in Asia. And this is definitely something that for the tourism and events industry can become somewhat problematic, but also a lot of resources that are coming into the cities there that could potentially be harnessed. And then alongside this demographic shift of populations moving into the cities, society itself is also changing. Overall, there's quite a large segment of the population which is now the over 65s. Retirees, people that are going to travel more or attend more events around the world. And at the same time, the women in the workforce, for example, are increasing in number quite dramatically. And this also could change the way in which people might travel and decide to take holidays or attend events. And in tandem to all these huge trends, digitalization is probably one of the biggest. because it's with AI and automation really pervading every aspect of life at the moment, and especially younger generations. For them, the digital world is becoming almost like a second language. And by 2020, almost, I think, 7 times the amount of devices predicted to be on the planet as people. And I think that, again, presents the tourism and events industry with a great opportunity for utilizing some of the tools that are embedded within that, the whole ecosystem of digital technologies. But also a risk, because we have to actually learn the language of the people that are really using all these digital tools so intensely. And all of these, 5 megatrends, these will have to be considered moving forward. And I think the 4 building blocks, which Guy will talk about in a second, are sort of trying to navigate these currents a little bit better.
Great. Well, thanks, Noah. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's other trends. I'm interested to see if you think there's any that we kind of missed, because there's lots of different ones. I mean, Emilia, thanks for your note there. You mentioned something about over-tourism and I think the impacts on cities like Barcelona and Venice and Amsterdam. I saw even today a big article about Bruges being fed up with over-tourism. So how does over-tourism start to affect the meetings and events industry as well? So basically, the world is changing, and changing very fast, and has changed. And so we think that in general, destinations need to step up and have it understand and react to these change, especially when they start to plan for the future. And so that kind of validates this shift that we've seen in the last few years of how DMOs have moved from being a marketing organization to becoming a management organization. And so I think that's kind of one of the key things that is really key here. So, okay, so I'm going to take you on to the next slide here. So really, how are destinations changing to these mega trends? Because there's some that are highly in action over there. So we call these the 4 building blocks, which we think all destinations need to be kind of planning for. The first thing is like someone needs to take the lead, and we've heard a lot from different places around the world. They say, whose responsibility is it? And well, it's not mine. It should be the city, or it should be this, or it should be that. So we think there's a big opportunity for taking the lead, and then taking the lead to develop a long-term master plan. So not a kind of 1-year tactical plan, but a 5 or 10-year strategy. So here I picked up an example from the Thailand Convention and Exhibition Bureau, TCEP, who started off working years ago to develop a master plan. And actually I worked with them on this. We developed it in 2014 and launched in 2015. And so it was a plan that was developed with a lot of stakeholder engagement, and very much aligned to what the city was planning, what the country was planning, and what the industry needed. So we've seen now that out of our cities in the index, there's 68% of them are working on a strategy. But we've also noticed that that strategy needs to be developed, needs to be enhanced. It's not quite there yet. So one thing is developing a strategy, and 2, it needs to be integrated into your core strategy. So some destinations, some organizations maybe have a sustainability strategy, but it's kind of a plug on it. It's an add-on, and it's kind of not really integrated into the whole thing. So someone like Gothenburg is a fantastic example of how the whole business plan, the whole business strategy for the destination is built around and includes sustainability. So they have kind of mission to constantly challenge accepted ideas for sustainability. So I recommend you have a look at their business plan if you want an example. Sydney is another great organization, does some really good work. And I think this is a good example of different things here, in that they are setting a vision, they're engaging their audience correctly, they're communicating very well, and more than anything, and this is our kind of the building block here, the fourth building block, they become a master at collaboration. So they really have worked out how to bring people together to reduce plastic, food waste, make procurement more sustainable, and improve measurement. You can see the 4 blocks there. So recommend you have a look at this website. It's a fantastic strategy, business plan, and model. So we're going to talk you through some of these tactics, these 8 tactics for change now. And I'll lead on a couple, then I'll hand you over to Nadine. So the first one here is about integrating the SDGs. Since these came out in 2015, they've really given us a wonderful system for defining what sustainability is. It really helps us to think about it in a destination, the complexity and all the different elements of sustainability, gives us a set of goals, gives us a framework, gives us a way of reporting. And so we really recommend that you have a look at that. I think wonderful Copenhagen and their work they've done for their strategy called Tourism for Good is a great example of how you can do this. So have a look at their website. This is their core business strategy. So again, like Gothenburg, this is the core business strategy. It's not a sustainability strategy. And it's really how they can use tourism to make a better place to live, meet and thrive in. So that's a really good one. I see Olivia is on the line here from for Lausanne. For Lausanne and Montreux, we just did a kind of mapping of their key issues and impacts that are happening in the Lausanne and Montreux region. And we use the SDGs as a kind of a model there to allow us to see what's happening. So they really can help you move ahead, and we totally recommend that. I already mentioned Sydney, but what they did, which is a key tactic for change, is really they footprint and used science to set goals for what they need to do. Sydney has a target to become carbon neutral, so they need to do some pretty major reduction of their carbon emissions, like we as a whole industry. You know, we have to kind of reduce to hit the Paris targets. We're talking about a kind of a 45% decrease in emissions by 2030 and net zero by 2050. So how do you get there if you don't even measure your footprint? So Sydney went out and measured their footprint, and they realized that the hospitality industry, so not just events, but the kind of entertainment as well, and the events industry, actually produced 11% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions, was responsible for 14% of the water consumption, and 46% of the city's commercial waste. So it was pretty major kind of impact here. But once you know that, then you can set targets. It becomes quite material and important. So that's a second one. I'll hand you over now to Nadine. I'm going to give you, Nadine, a little bit of a mouse here. So you can...
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all here. Okay, so I have the mouse control, right? Do I?
No, you keep telling me to advance it while I work this out.
No problems. Okay, so we were talking about data, right? And another great way to use data is to engage with your stakeholders. So a lot of people talk about over-tourism, like Olivier was saying. A lot of people talk about what do residents feel about visitors, and what do visitors feel about what do visitors feel about the country and about the population and about the facilities and everything. And what Copenhagen did to engage their stakeholders is that they combined 4 research projects to measure the impact of tourism on the city itself, from a visitor's point of view and from a resident's point of view, to try not only to come up with solutions, but to show and to have a clear view of its impact, its social impact and its environmental impact. So, and one thing that they did that was great is that they made the data sexy. So not only is it very informative, but it is also great to and it is a great tool to engage your stakeholders and to engage your clients. Guy?
Yeah.
Another example for tactics for change is certification. And we're seeing a rise in the number of hotel, venue, and destination certification in general. And this speaks volumes, actually, because it's great when, for example, a venue or a hotel have their own sustainability programs. However, if it is not audited and if it cannot be third-party certified, then it sort of loses its impact, it sort of loses its credibility, and makes the planners' lives much harder, and makes the people that are looking for the information, their lives is much harder, because how can they really assess? How can they really know whether or not it is really effective? How can they benchmark it or compare it with other certifications or with other programs if each hotel has their own programs? Which is why third-party certifications are the way to go, which is why they are the credentials that your destination, your venues, your hotels need to get in order to build up their credibility and sustainability and in their efforts as well. Moving on, one of the biggest impacts that the industry has, the MICE and the tourism industry has, is food waste. And I think this touches us all. We see it everywhere in all of the meetings that we go to, in all of the destinations that we visit. We see that a lot of the food that is produced is wasted. And one of the things that destinations should be doing, and one of the tactics that they should be going for to change, is to promote the food revolution, to reduce the waste, to go for fresh local produce, to connect the community, to connect with the community, to connect the suppliers, to connect the event organizers and the planners and the clients, the buyers, basically. And the great example for that is Ljubljana, which created the program Locally Grown Food Exchange. And
I think you should say that in Slovenian. That's like quite easy to say that, isn't it? Borsel, or I have no clue how you say that.
I have no clue either. But what is great about this program is that they created this platform where buyers and suppliers, they basically meet twice a year, and they connect, they talk, they exchange offers. This is a great way for buyers to know what is available in the territory, what is available locally, what can they do, what are the seasonalities of the produce, what can they make with their local farmers, what can they make with their local producers, what can they buy from them, and vice versa. And so it's great because it's moderated. It's moderated by Ljubljana Tourism and by is it moderated by the Slovenian CVB as well, Guy? Or just
they're involved. It's primarily driven by Ljubljana.
Yeah. And this interpersonal meetings, not only do they encourage new agreements, but as you can imagine, they also promote jobs. They create jobs. They create jobs both ways, for the suppliers, for the buyers, and it creates this platform where people can just go and brainstorm and have this collaboration, this platform of collaboration for them to know what is good and what works and what they can use and how to just promote that food revolution, to push it forward. Another great example is Thailand. So once again, TSAP. They have created a standard for food waste, which was aligned with the UN's food loss and waste standard. And it's basically a tool for hotels and venues to manage and reduce their amount of waste. So it was initially piloted in 10 hotels, and the impact was astonishing. It delivered over 500,000 euros in cost savings and over almost 400 tons of carbon emission reduction. So when you think of that, these numbers, they speak volumes. These numbers, you can take that, you can use that, and you can see that this is the way forward. This is the way to think. How can we measure that? How can we use that? How can we enhance that even further?
And Zurich did a similar program, and I think they saved finally over €1 million.
Wow.
So that was, yeah.
Yeah. Another great tactic for change is storytelling. I think we are all very familiar with green advertising, you know, plants, windmills, leaves, hands holding each other, things like that. And it's just very cliche. It's what we call stock sustainability. And it not only it doesn't sell, it doesn't engage people. And one of the reasons why it doesn't engage people is because it's so far from them. It doesn't speak to them. It doesn't, what does that mean? It's not a picture, it's not a visual they can relate to. What people want to, or what you want to give people, because as communications people in your destination, as the marketeers in your destination, they know how to engage people. It's their work. And one of the reasons, and one of the things that people are looking for in sustainability, and one of the things that your communicators and marketeers in your destinations can do, is that they can make it sexy, they can make it charming, they can make it funny, they can make it beautiful and new, so that they not only does it engage people that are already aware of what is happening, but it engages also the people that are not necessarily sustainably aware, or those that are not very much in line of what's happening, or that simply the customers that just don't care. So this is a great way to engage with the whole spectrum, with the full spectrum of your customers and your visitors. Another angle, or another great thing about storytelling, is language, and language is very important. The words we use are usually, they can make or break the story you're telling, right? And another thing that we see a lot with sustainability communication is that it is full of abstract words, it's full of technical words that, again, are at a distance from the people that you want to target. They're at a distance from the audience. And at the end of the day, they fail to deliver the key messages. So, for example, we talk about biodiversity loss and climate change, but not a lot of people know exactly what that means. And it doesn't really matter. They don't necessarily need to know per se the technical details, the technical aspect of everything. They just need to know its effect. They need to understand and be aware of what it does. So instead of talking about biodiversity loss, why not talk about ecocide? Instead of talking about climate change, why not talk about climate breakdown? Because the climate is breaking down. So these are two angles when you're communicating about sustainability. Focus on the key visuals, make the visuals engaging, make them relevant for your targeted audience, and use words that people can relate to as well. Do not make it overly technical. It doesn't make sense to just create a very scientific word that no one understands what it is. And one of the things that we see is also the word green. What does green mean at the end of the day? We need to use better words. We need to use language that is relevant. We need to use terms that make sense. We need to use terms that engage people. So, for example, instead of using green, why not use sustainable? And again, sustainable is a bit overused. Can we take that and find an alternative term for it, like regenerative? So these are all things that are up for debate, and these are all things that you can explore. And what we found, for example, in what Copenhagen was doing, and what Gothenburg was doing, and all of these great initiatives, what they were doing is that they were making it relevant. They were using the right words. They were using the right key visuals. So these are the things you need to focus on when communicating on sustainability.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. When we wrote the report, we wrote it one way, and then we took, if you look in the Guardian, there's actually a whole table of these words, and we rewrote or edited, should we say, the report, changing words for the suggestions and really trying to use a different type of language. So you'll see that now in our communication, we're really changing how we communicate. And I think that's a bit of a lesson that we've been on, but others have been on, you know. So what about our friends in Monaco? What they've been doing?
Yeah, so Monaco, they've done a great thing. They've created a very engaging story. Glam is the new green. Or sorry, actually green is the new glam. And what I like about the story is that it does two things. It hits two birds with one stone, basically. So first of all, it breaks the perception that, well, green, sustainable living, sustainable things, sustainable options cannot be glamorous, because they're usually seen as maybe very organic, very natural, very, you get the point, you get the perception. So a lot of people, luxury brands, luxury hotels are afraid to use or to explore their sustainability option, because they feel that maybe that will come at a loss of their reputation of glamour. And what Monaco did, which we all know, Monaco, its whole reputation is based on glamour and luxury. So what they did is that they basically broke that perception, took it and broke it in two halves. Another great thing they did is that they related their sustainability efforts, they related what they're doing sustainably in the destination, they related that to their identity, to their image. So that, for me, the Green is the New Glam campaign is a genius way to promote the destination. And what's funny, or what's nice about it, is that Green is the New Glam, while it has been incredible, they realized that it was working so well for the leisure side of tourism, but was not as engaging as much for the business side. So what they've done is that they've created basically a twist on that campaign and created another campaign, Business is Green, to attract the business events, to attract the MICE industry more to the destination. And as we encourage you to go look it up, to look at the videos. They are really great. They are really engaging, and the directing of the video is incredible as well. It's on point.
Yeah, good point. What about the last tactic, the change?
And lastly, coming to one of the main things about sustainability is credibility. We were talking about credibility in data, credibility in certifications, and credibility also comes in reporting. Credibility comes from being transparent. Credibility comes from letting people know that you're thinking about it. For example, here in our star destination Gothenburg, what they've done is that they've done a materiality or a materiality analysis. A materiality analysis basically means that they have mapped out what are the challenges, what the sustainability challenges that they're going through, what are the sustainability challenges that make sense to them, that are relevant for them, that they need to change, that they can work on. So as you can see here, for example, in the key sustainability issues, there's a little box called material sustainability issues, and it breaks it down beautifully. So it takes these material issues and it reports on them. It shows that they're working on them, they're thinking about them, and they're reporting on them not only in numbers or in stories or in words, but they're going one step further by using the Global Reporting Initiative Index or Principles, which is the GRI, which is basically, so there are a number of standards for non-financial reporting, or what we call sustainability reporting. The GRI being one of the most famous ones, and it actually has become some sort of baseline practice in most industries, known worldwide, known for people. If you ever go into a big company sustainability report, you will most definitely see GRI indicators being mentioned. So what we're asking people to do in this industry is to take that step, to take it forward, and to also be on that standard, also be on that same level of sustainability reporting, be on the same standard. So please do have a look at this sustainability report, at the annual report on sustainability.
Yeah, and you know, it's one thing that's a bit weak. Only 21% of the destinations are disclosing on their sustainability,
Yeah.
and most of those aren't doing it particularly well. That's why we pick on Gothenburg. It was really a great example. And going through this process, which quite well explained in the report, in the white paper, we've seen and we've learned that this type of reporting helps you be more transparent. So that builds trust, helps you uncover your flaws, but also, perhaps most importantly, it helps you use your stakeholders to really generate new ideas and new areas for improvement. And
Yeah.
so we're a big believer of this. It's something that we've been
Yes.
driving forward for the last few years.
And it also centralizes all of your efforts in one place and your progress. They don't get dispersed. They don't lose value. They gain value by being in one place, by being reported on, by being seen and being valued. So
As our old boss used to say, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist.
exactly.
So good. So that is a super turbo review of the report. So we talked to show you the trends. There's kind of 4 key building blocks, which are there. You know, take the lead, develop a plan, integrate the core strategy, become a master collaborator. Then the 8 tactics for change. So we've stormed through this. Invite you to look through the reports. You may also have seen, and you'll see more of, some kind of micro 1-minute videos that summarize specific areas. So we're trying to be a lot more creative, better storytellers ourselves. So we're kind of using this report as a way to kind of push ourselves to get better into this. So we invite you to if you're not already part of the GDS Index, become part of the program. And we kind of want to throw this out as a wake-up call. We feel like it's time that everyone steps up their action, and we're here to help. So please feel free to contact us if you need anything. If not, we thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in some part of the world.